Water is central to everything we do. We simply can't survive without it. Access to safe, clean water is something we all take for granted every day here in the United States. It's hard to imagine what life would be like if the only water we had access to was dangerous for our long-term health. This is a reality, though, for the people of Bangladesh. There, the only water accessible for much of the population is heavily contaminated with arsenic, which has many negative health effects that take a toll on the entire body.
It all started during the 1980s and 1990s in Bangladesh, where a huge crisis of contaminated water affected thousands of people in rural, underprivileged areas. Dangerous levels of arsenic were detected within shallow wells. The crisis has led to a long and safe search for safe drinking water for over 20 years. The population affected was approximately 30 billion inhabitants of Bangladesh that were affected by drinking arsenic-contaminated water, with those living in rural areas with a low socioeconomic status having a higher exposure to the arsenic. The nature of the arsenic in the environment in Bangladesh is a natural part of the Earth's crust and can be distributed through water, air, and land. In this region, the arsenic is in the form of a particle that has seeped into the water. The effect of arsenic on the body is dependent on how long of the exposure one has. Long-term exposures to arsenic may cause chronic arsenic poisoning, skin lesions, and even skin cancer. However, short-term exposure includes diarrhea, nausea and vomiting, stomachache, and skin changes or rashes. Those exposed to high concentrations of arsenic, around 50 micrograms, had higher risk of developing arsenic poisoning, while those who had about 10 micrograms of arsenic in their water were safe to drink from the water. Thank you for talking with us today, Dalton. Your information will be extremely beneficial, and I'm excited to speak with you today. Do you happen to know what caused the tragic incident to those population groups in Bangladesh?
So it was actually the World Health Organization that initially recommended that the Bangladesh government dig new wells to replace the shallow ones that they were currently using that caused the spread of diseases like cholera. The thing that the WHO didn't know at the time, though, is the fact that the recommended depth of these new wells was the same depth as much arsenic-containing rock below the surface in Bangladesh.
How many people are currently affected by the arsenic waters?
Those affected are mostly rural people, most of which being in the Bengal River Basin and Bengal deltas, and they have a much higher concentration of arsenic in their water than other parts of Bangladesh. The WHO actually predicts that in a few years the death of 1 in 10 adults could be from cancers triggered by arsenic in southern Bangladesh.
Why has nothing been done about this?
Nothing has been done essentially because of money. Digging new wells is obviously very expensive, and when Bangladesh originally dug these wells, they had funding for the WHO. However, the WHO is now unwilling to fund these wells, and the Bangladesh government is doing nothing about it. Something else that's shocking, though, is that, like many developing countries, political corruption is rampant in Bangladesh. And so areas that have high levels of support for the winning political candidate usually get new wells. What's especially shocking, though, is that when new wells are dug, they're usually in areas with high political support for the current person in power in Bangladesh. So this means that it's rich areas that already have access to arsenic-safe water, and they're getting new wells, when this money could have been spent in rural areas with people suffering from arsenic poisoning every day.
Thank you so much for your time and all of your informative information about the issues. Hopefully more regulations and public health issues will become more aware and the arsenic levels will continue to decrease. Hi, my name is Vanessa and I'm here to discuss with Darshani of how her family members were affected by the arsenic levels in Bangladesh. I understand that your grandmother suffered from the serious disease from drinking too much contaminated water, and I was wondering if you would be able to discuss a little bit about this.
My grandmother, along with many of other people in my family and community, have been affected by the arsenic in the water. They experienced many symptoms that are still affecting them today.
What are some of the symptoms your grandmother has had and other people throughout your village?
Some of the symptoms are very severe and they have dark spots across their skin and burns as well. My grandmother also has severe pain in her joints and her palms, and she's not able to hold anything without feeling pain. The arsenic also makes it difficult to breathe, which can potentially cause lung cancer down the road. Other people in the village have black lesions on their palms of their hands, which is also a sign of the poisoning from the arsenic. Before the new water system was established, we suffered a lot from the lack of drinking water. There aren't a lot of sources, and it just makes it really difficult.
Are there any other current sources of water that are healthy enough to drink from?
We can only rely on the shallow tube wells and are very dependent on them. However, arsenic is still being found in those tube wells. But finally, in 2012, Brackwash established a village meeting to establish a new sand filter system they developed.
What exactly is the Brackwash?
Brackwash is a water sanitation and hygiene program that concluded that the pond sand filter would liberate us from the lack of drinking water. They provided a large pond with clean water that is only used for specifically drinking water. The water is safe and people have had less symptoms from the arsenic. The only issue now is that they are very expensive to maintain the clean water in the pond for a small percent of the population. Still, a huge percentage of people in Bangladesh are still being poisoned by naturally occurring arsenic in the water.
Thank you for speaking with me today and all of your participation. I can't imagine what you and everyone else in your village have been going through. I hope that there are changes and more public health awareness problems that will help you throughout this issue. How has this issue impacted the overall society in Bangladesh?
The event impacts people of Bangladesh as they require them to keep checking potential signs for arsenic in the wells they receive water from. The citizens are so worried of which well to receive water from because the government is only fixing a few wells. Another reason why citizens are worried is because some indicators of how much arsenic is present in water of particular wells has been rubbed off.
You stated earlier that the government will not fix all of the wells. Is this because of economic issues, or is fixing the problem too much of a mass production? Also, are there any corporations worldwide helping out with the issue as well?
The economic impact of arsenic contamination suggests that the gross domestic product output loss because of illnesses related to arsenic contamination to be approximately $23 billion. The cost of treating the disease would be $0.6 billion.
Since you stated this disease is extremely expensive to treat, is it very discouraging to hear that people are still being affected by this? Were there any regulations changed within lawsuits that impacted this event for the better?
The event is still affecting people today as the appearance of arsenic is naturally occurring. Many prospective studies associated with prevalence are ongoing. Now there are signs put in place to indicate the level of arsenic prevalent in certain wells. 2004 was when policies were enforced to provide safe water for those exposed population and medical care for those affected with symptoms of arsenic poisoning. However, today there is still no national monitoring system put into place.